This episode of the Busted Wide Open podcast is brought to you by Blueberry. Blueberry offers the best media hosting, accurate listening stats, and their all-new PowerPress Deluxe sites. A no-setup WordPress website for your podcast with all the necessary links to share your show with the world built right in. If you currently produce a podcast and are looking for a better host, or if you're looking to start a new one from scratch, head over to orbitaljigsaw.com/BWO and sign up for the best media hosting and a PowerPress Deluxe site to get your first month absolutely free. That's orbitaljigsaw.com/BWO, or just use the promo code BWO at checkout for your first month absolutely free. And now, enjoy the show.
This is your boy Dak from the 410 Gaming Podcast, and when I'm not doing terrible wrestling impersonations, I'm listening to the Busted Wide Open Podcast on the Orbital Jigsaw Network. Oh, yeah!
You're listening to the Busted Wide Open Podcast, dropping the elbow on the hottest topics in sports entertainment and the world of professional wrestling. With your hosts, Nick Howell and Sir Ian Dangerous. Coming to you from the Orbital Jigsaw Network Arena in sunny Southern California. Welcome back to the Busted Wide Open Podcast, but if you're joining us for the first time, I'd like to welcome you to episode number 46. I'm Nick Howell.
And I am Sir Ian Dangerous, and we are finally getting to our Wrestle Kingdom 12 review and recap show.
We've been talking about this for like 6 months now, at least.
Well,
We're off the back of the G1, I guess.
Yeah, we wanted to do like a whole separate New Japan show for a while now, and it seemed like, I mean, we had a couple of opportunities, but really, this is one we just couldn't let this go by. This is New Japan's biggest event of the year. Wrestle Kingdom.
WrestleMania.
It is their WrestleMania, and it was a doozy this year. New Japan has had one hell of a year in terms of quality, in terms of matches, in terms of stories. They've had one of their best years, arguably ever, and certainly within the last couple decades.
Yeah.
And so this was the culmination to a lot of that, and we're going to talk about all the different matches and see if it matched up.
Well, it's not just the matches. There's tons of storylines that progressed, and did anything finish? I think we need to talk about some of that stuff. Did we blow anything off?
I think there were a couple of blow-offs, but I think there's definitely a lot of opening up new avenues and new stories, and one story that we thought was going to be ended here, or at least come to a conclusion, was given a hard ellipsis. I think they made this look like we have an open end on one of the longest currently running storylines in wrestling. So there's a lot to talk about here, and a lot of exciting stuff happened on this show.
Well, it wasn't just Wrestle Kingdom. We also had the New Year's Dash as well. So what was to do with that?
Yeah,
what do we need to talk about with that?
The little event they had shortly after Wrestle Kingdom, a couple of like the fallout moments from Wrestle Kingdom, give you an idea of where they're going in the new year. So definitely, we'll touch on that at the end as kind of a way to put the cap on the whole thing, because it gave us some idea of what's happening next in New Japan, and it was some cool stuff happened there.
Absolutely. Well, we were definitely going to run through each of the matches, give you some commentary on that, but stick around afterwards because we've got a special segment that we really wanted to talk about around New Japan being an adoption in the U.S. and draw some analogies to some things that my experience, my first real, maybe outside some of the G1 matches, first real experience, as I've told you guys here on the show, I was going to dive into New Japan in 2018 and fully invest. And after my first 6-hour pay-per-view, I've got some thoughts, and I want to share them with you, Ian, as a hardcore New Japan fan, and maybe some different perspectives from somebody who's not, and maybe we can talk about that.
Yeah, let's discuss like what works about New Japan in a Western wrestling perspective, like if it's accessible to American audiences, and if they do want to branch out and try to get over here a little bit more, which it seems like they're trying to do with matches like Jericho and Omega, what their obstacles are and what they have going for them that will help them accomplish that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, let's jump right in and start things off just as they did, talking about their version of the Royal Rumble match, which they call, is it the Royal...
The new thing, New Japan Rumble,
New
Japan Rumble, I believe they call it. It's basically their match where they put everyone they don't really have anything to do with on the show, and they have them on. You had Tiger Mask was in this, and Bushi, Chase Owens, David Finlay, Desperado was in this. some of the older guys like Hiroyoshi Tenzan and Kitamura and Kojima was in this. Nagata. So you had a bunch of their older, more venerable dudes, having spots in this, and it was an it's kind of like the Royal Rumble where there's a countdown, someone shows up, and then it's an elimination, either over the top rope or you lose by pinfall or submission,
right?
As opposed to the Royal Rumble, which is only over the top rope.
Gotcha.
So it's basically a way to get everyone a little bit of time and shine. So we don't need to talk about this too long because like a lot of New Japan where they have like the Road to specials, it's a lot of people in the ring and there's not really a whole lot of storyline going on. It's more like just kind of a way to warm up the crowd. But what was cool about this was the final two people in this, Cheeseburger, who people might know from Ring of Honor. He's very popular in Ring of Honor. He's becoming very popular in New Japan. He was he and Masahito Kakihara were the last two guys in this match. And Kakihara recently came back from battling cancer, so he was a surprise final entrant in this. And the crowd popped big for him. He's 45. He's been around for a while, so it was kind of a happy story to have him back in the match. Well, and he beat Cheeseburger. He won the whole thing, so it was like a really cool little redemption story. Nice, kind of like feel good way to start the whole show. And that's pretty much all you have to say about this Rumble. It was fun. It was entertaining. People got their shine, and yeah.
Well, so I mean, like the Royal Rumble match over on the WWE side, are there any stakes in this that grant you something for winning this match?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't believe so.
It's just for fun.
It's just for fun. It's just
okay.
it's there to sometimes in these matches, if someone beats somebody else, in the future they may get a singles match against them or something like that. But it's overall it's just a way to have a match and let everyone show their athleticism.
Well, part of what I take is the growth of New Japan over the course of the last year. Normally there's only 14 entrants into this match. This year we had 21.
Yeah.
So any significance from your perspective as to why that would be? Do you see it growing even bigger than this and maybe eventually introducing some kind of stakes?
I mean, they could. They do have rumbles
Okada?
sometimes that do. Yeah, right. They do sometimes have these that have stakes. They have the multi-man tags that do have stakes in them. It's their way to tell little stories on the side without having the backstage segments that are so prevalent in WWE.
Yeah.
So you basically get your stories in ring and how people interact with each other and who beats who and who fights who and how they interact, and that's how they tell their stories.
Well, moving over, let's talk about the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Championship featuring the Young Bucks versus Roppongi 3K.
Yeah, Sho and Yo, man, came back off of Excursion and immediately won the belts. And then they defended them against the Young Bucks, who have the most championship reigns in New Japan history. They were 6-time tag champs coming into this match. And honestly, Wrestle Kingdom 11, the Bucks had a fantastic match, but they've been kind of hit or miss for the rest of the year. Some matches are great, some matches aren't. I personally thought this was a really fun, really well done match, and it had a lot more psychology in it than I usually expect from a Young Bucks match. A lot of times they're criticized for not having enough psychology, and this one was really nicely built around both Yo and Matt Jackson, quote unquote, injuring their backs in this match. And so there's a lot of selling of the backs and working on the backs. With sharpshooters and super kicks to the back, and I think there was one spot where one of the Young Bucks did a splash or a moonsault onto Yo's back while he was draped over the ropes. I mean, it was, as you would expect, a lot of really good high flying, a lot of super kicks. But I thought it was a very entertaining match. But the Young Bucks pick it up again. They beat Sho and Yo, which I think is smart booking because Sho and Yo came back and won it really quickly, and now they have something to fight for. They have a little more stakes when they fight. So, and they're talented as hell. Like, they got Rocky Romero as their manager, they obviously New Japan thinks very highly of.
Yeah.
He's one of the only Western guys who speaks fluent Japanese. So I think having them all together, I think they have a lot to work with here.
Omega does as well, doesn't he? If I'm not mistaken.
Not as well as Rocky does.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He speaks a bit of it. He's trying to get better at it, but Rocky's fluent.
Well, with Sho and Yo dropping the belts to the Young Bucks, them becoming 7-time champions, what does this spell for Sho and Yo off the back of this? They look like two really young, talented up-and-comers.
Yeah.
Do you see them continuing to pursue the Bucks throughout 2018 to get the titles back?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the Bucks also, as much as they've had a bunch of reigns, they're also not very good at defending them. I think they've only had 9 defenses.
Well, that's
and
how you get seven reigns.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to lose a lot to win a lot.
Right.
But so I do see Sho and Yo continuing to chase. There's not really a whole lot there's not a whole lot of other people who seem like they're in contention or really high up in the junior heavyweight, the junior heavyweight tag division right now. So, I see the Show and Yo feud going on. It certainly seemed that way at New Year Dash that would continue, and I think that's a good idea. These guys all work incredibly well together.
Yeah. So
a great way to start the show. High energy. Obviously, at this point, Young Bucks are kind of staples of New Japan, and they're very over there. And Show and Yo can be kind of the hometown heroes. So a great way to start the show, and definitely got us primed for the rest of the madness.
Speaking of which, we have to get into something that took an exorbitant amount of time to get through, which was the never open weight 6-man tag gauntlet match. That was a mouthful.
Even more of a mouthful is the people who were in this match. I mean, it's funny because they actually packed a lot. I didn't think it was over long at all. It was like 17, 18 minutes to get through all 4 of these teams. And it was a gauntlet match, as you said, which means that we start out with 2 teams. The winner faces the next team to come out, and then this and so forth until the final team out is the champs. And the champs going into this was OG Bullet Club, which is Bad Luck Fale, Tamatonga, and Tongaloa. So they were the last ones out. We started off with Suzuki Gun, and it's supposed to just be 3 guys, but of course, all of Suzuki Gun came to the ring, as they do, and they faced off against Michael Elgin and War Machine, which was interesting because we had heard before Wrestle Kingdom that War Machine was like almost a lock.
One foot out the door.
Yeah, to go to WWE. So seeing them come out, and then also with all of the crap coming out recently about Michael Elgin and what a shithead he is in real life, it was weird to see them come out first, and you could kind of handicap right off the bat, well, they're going out.
They're not getting the belts.
They ain't going nowhere.
Right.
And they, to their credit, they did have a lot of good shine spots. War Machine had some cool strength spots, and it was a fun match. Just they lost.
Michael Elgin had one. I think I've seen Jeff Cobb do it as well, where he has one guy on his shoulders, one guy picks up another, presses another guy, ends up Samoa dropping, and then another overhead throw of the other guy.
Yeah.
That was an impressive spot.
Yeah, and one of the members of War, I think it was Hanson, did like a moonsault off the top rope. That's a big boy to be doing a moonsault.
But he missed, but it's still impressive.
Still impressive. I'm sorry, I don't care if you missed. But yeah, it ended with Zack Sabre Jr. Tapping out Mike Rowe, I believe. Or he didn't tap him out, he put him to sleep.
He put him to sleep in the triangle. Yeah man.
Yeah.
No, and there was an interesting moment there, and we actually stopped and said this, but you heard the ref go, stop, and it looked like a typical like cross-arm kind of like, oh man, he's messed up, legit.
He threw the X up.
And I don't know if that was a sell, but I got the impression that he was really hurt.
The fact that they didn't linger on it, it diffused it a bit for me. Had they taken more time with him just lying in the ring, then I would have started to get worried.
Yeah.
But it's a really good sell.
Clear the ring, you bring a stretcher out, you start getting worried.
And Zack Sabre Jr. is one of those guys who can legit put you to sleep. Like he's a scary grappler. He can be.
Yeah.
That was a cool moment. But then the next one's out was Chaos. Right out the gate. You had Beretta, Tomohiro Ishii, my boy, and Toru Yano, other boy, coming out. And they had they put out Suzuki again pretty quickly. Toru Yano rolled up Taichi after giving him a low blow, and they were out pretty quick.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised at how fast Suzuki again was out. And then we kept on going. We had Chaos versus Taguchi Japan, which was Juice Robinson, Ryusuke Taguchi, of course, and Togi Makabe. I thought they'd have a little bit more time, but Taguchi got a little bit overzealous, and he ended up getting rolled up by Toru Yano, and they're out. So now it's Chaos, who survived 2 teams going up against the champs, as I said, OG Bullet Club.
Right.
And this is where things got interesting.
Yeah, the pace definitely picked up here because, these guys, the Tongans are OG Bullet Club or Guerrillas of Destiny or whatever you want to call them at this point. I don't even know what to refer to them as.
Well, the Guerrillas of Destiny is just Tamatonga and Tongaloa as a tag team, and then you add Fale in, and the 3 of them together are like 3 of the founders of Bullet Club. Right. So they just call themselves the OGBC. Which is,
one of the big spots for me was Beretta kicking out of Tonga's gun stun, and that ultimately leading to the pin.
I just love that the gun stun has become, because it's kind of like it's a cutter, like a diamond cutter or like an RKO.
Right.
And he's basically trying to out Randy Orton by
Let's talk about this. This is good.
Or like he just keeps trying to find more creative ways to have it come out of nowhere on somebody.
We need to make a supercut video of all of his cutters that he's doing with Michael Cole orgasming, going out of nowhere. Oh God!
Yeah.
Okay, out of nowhere.
Yes. Oh, God. Can you imagine how Michael Cole would destroy the Gorillas of Destiny?
Oh, God.
They call themselves the Gorillas of Destiny. Anyway, I don't even want to get into that. Another big spot was Ishii trying to suplex frickin' Bad Luck Fale.
Yeah, this had slipped my mind until we got to, yes. This went on for it felt like 10 minutes where each of them were trying to vertically suplex the other one, and he did it!
He did it.
He got big old Fale up in a vertical hold, and he held it there for 2 or 3 seconds.
Yeah, no, it wasn't just like a snap suplex or anything. He got this 350-pound monster up in the air, and Ishii's a little fire plug. I mean, he's not that tall, but he's a block.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I still feel like maybe this is just me being an Ishii mark. I feel like he was kind of wasted on this show. Like him having one quick shine spot in a multi-man tag match. It's kind of sad. I wish he had more to do because he's so money and he can go in big matches. I would love to see him further on this year getting into the big title picture.
Yeah.
And it's disheartening to see him. This is where he got relegated on Wrestle Kingdom.
He had a great G1 climax this year. I mean, it was just. I was surprised that he did not have a bigger role going into Wrestle Kingdom myself. I really am.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that someone who might have a bigger role as well is Trent Beretta because they seem like they're putting a lot of faith in him. Like you said, not only did he kick out of the gun stun, then he hit a put on his Dude Buster for the win. So he pinned the champs himself. So the fact that he got that shine, we'll see. Ever since he and Rocky Romero split up and he went heavyweight, like they seem like he's been putting in good work and they seem like they've been appreciating it. So definitely want to keep an eye on him going forward.
Oh, by the way, Toru Yano has a belt.
I know, it's great. Toru Yano has a belt. Oh, who's he going to low blow to keep it? That's just the question.
Well, hey, let's move over and talk about what were kind of maybe the matches that people were more familiar with, starting with Cody facing off against Kota Ibushi.
Yeah, this is one of those matches that I think this match would have been promoted more. I think it would have been possibly even later on the card if Cody had retained the Ring of Honor belt. I think the fact that he lost it took away some of the shine from this match and it just became a singles match. And they had to kind of, in the match, like push some of the storyline stuff going on with Cody and Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi and Kenny Omega and the weird dynamic going on in Bullet Club and the history of Kota Ibushi and Kenny Omega. And that just became like a storyline thing. But then the match itself didn't have that same weight to it.
There were 2 or 3 like highlight spots, but that was kind of just, I didn't feel it.
Right.
And I know the little bit that I know from, vicariously being near you, but I can't imagine being somebody new coming in and giving a shit about this match.
Yeah, and the problem was, even as someone who watches the show, it seemed like it was kind of thrown together. That being said, I actually, when I first watched it, and I've watched it twice now, when I first watched it, I was underwhelmed. I was like, because I'm so used to Ibushi just being God, basically, and, just wrestling, just royalty. He's a freak of nature. And I thought that he was downplaying his abilities to be able to work with Cody. Looking at it again, I thought the storytelling was way better than I had realized the first time. I thought the psychology was way better. I thought the way that they worked Cody being aggressive and cheating and using Brandy to psych out Kota Ibushi and then hitting him with that monster crossroads onto the floor that looked like it broke Ibushi's neck, and then Ibushi's comeback from that. The timing of his comeback was much more elegant than I remember it being, and it was actually a very well timed, very well worked match. It just fell a little flat because the stakes weren't high enough.
The thing that stood out for me with this match was 2 things: the commentary and Brandy, more than like what was going on in the graps happening in the ring. So it was that whole story, and you could hear it in the commentary. They're kind of, whatever you want to call it, male love for Brandy. I'm going to say that as nice as I possibly can. But at the same time, her getting involved, and then the psychology of her and Cody laughing as if she's acting, if we didn't know that, right? But I thought that added some entertainment value, if nothing else, to the match, and at least made it fun.
Yeah, and that was, I kind of described it to you as being a bit more of a hybrid of the Western WWE style, where, if they had done a little more work on like a storyline under this match, this would have felt like a WWE match, frankly, with some bigger spots. But like WWE will never allow a crossroads onto the floor, for example. But it definitely felt a little bit more that WWE style where there was a lot of like external shenanigans and acting and heel work going on. Like Cody was playing a classic old school heel in this match, which you don't see that a lot in New Japan. You know what I mean? Like Minoru Suzuki is kind of one of the more heely, like classically heely guys they have. And even he doesn't get this cartoonish. And Jericho later in the show was definitely doing that, but he was to 11 where Cody was around an 8 or a 9. You know what I mean? So even there, it wasn't as big as I thought it could have been or should have been.
Yeah.
But it definitely felt like more of a hybrid of a Western style, partially to hide Cody's, I'm not going to say, I think weaknesses is unfair because I think Cody's very talented, but Ibushi is just so far beyond him in terms of ability and possibilities of what he can do in that ring that Cody was having to be the aggressor and keep Ibushi down more just so that they could work his style more.
Interesting. Are they moving forward with this Cody and Kenny stuff and splitting up Bullet Club between the Elite and what's going on, or is there any going to be further interactions with Kenny Omega and Ibushi? What are we looking at here? There was a line that Cody said. He said he doesn't love you like I love you, or like I do, or something like that. And the commentary referenced his Ibushi's
what is that
thing.
supposed to mean? Is he talking about Kenny Omega? Is he trying to get into his head?
Right.
Yeah, and I think that, again, the way that New Japan tells stories is very subtle. They tell it in the ring for the most part, or in press conferences. We got a little bit more information about where this is going at New Year Dash, but it moves very slowly.
Okay.
Cody and Kenny kind of got into it at New Year Dash. Obviously, they're warring for control of the Bullet Club right now, but they're not outright going to war. There's just some tension, some dissension in the ranks. So Cody facing off against Kota Ibushi here was his way of kind of twisting the knife in Kenny Omega. And if he'd beaten him, then he would, have one up on Kenny Omega, essentially. The question is, at what point do we see the long history of Kota Ibushi and Kenny Omega coming back into the forefront? Right now, everyone's doing their own separate things. They're just kind of subtly referencing it to keep it in our minds. But everyone was kind of hoping for Kota Ibushi, Kenny Omega at Wrestle Kingdom, I think. But even they said it's too soon for that. They said they wanted New Japan to let them give more of a build and make it a bigger deal when they do finally wrestle each other. And by the way, we've talked in WWE before about matches where someone might die. Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi, someone might die.
Damn.
They're going to pull out the stops when that does eventually happen, which we all hope it does.
One more aside to this match. Does this have any implications to Dalton Castle in the Ring of Honor Championship?
I don't think it does. The fact that Dalton Castle should have, to give this match more stakes, I think the Ring of Honor Championship should have just been one of the belts that was defended.
I agree.
And they just went for storyline over, I don't know, prestige is the right word, but storyline over importance. You know what I mean? So I think this match would have felt more important if Dalton Castle had come in and in Cody's place, and it was just a match where the Ring of Honor title was defended. Instead, what they're trying to do here is tell a piece of a larger story. And so when the Ring of Honor Championship was no longer in it, then they couldn't hide behind the fact that it was a championship match. And they just were like, all right, fuck it. Yeah, it's just a story. So I don't think Dalton Castle is going to be coming and defending Ring of Honor in Japan anytime soon.
Well, moving on, let's talk about the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Championship featuring Killer Elite Squad, Davey Boy Smith Jr. and Lance Archer facing off against Evil and Sonata of Chaos. This, again, was another one of those where I was just like, okay, they had a tag match.
Yeah, this one didn't blow me away either. It was, the one cool thing about it was right at the beginning, Davey Boy Smith and Lance Archer hit their finisher, and it looked like it was going to be over in 10 seconds. It looked like it was going to be a squash. And then the rest of the match was Evil and Sonata getting beaten down for freaking ever, and then having a very, I thought, small comeback at the end to win the belts. And I just thought this match was a little bit, in terms of the storytelling, was a little bit lopsided. I felt like the beatdown went on too long. I felt like the comeback was too short. Everyone's a good worker in this match. I just felt like it was the timing was wrong. It wasn't timed well in terms of the storytelling.
Well, I mean, Evil had a great G1, and there was some other things that came out of. I mean, are Evil and Sonata a legit tag team? Are we going to see this going forward in 2018?
I don't know. I don't know how long they're going to keep them teamed up. I mean, we saw some stuff, like I said, a New Year Dash. Like, we'll get into what's going forward after that, and it may have implications for this tag team. I think that having them as a tag team is a good idea because you can have other tag teams come along and they do feel legit because they're, as you said, they're both pretty big deals. Evil, is one of the guys that beat Okada in the G1. Like, he had a year, and Sonata is a major up and comer as well. So keeping them as a tag team to me kind of feels like Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins being tag champs over on WWE. It's like you've got two of your biggest guys all of a sudden at the top of the tag division. And unless they're there to make your other tag teams look good, how long do you keep them there?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know how long they're going to keep that rolling. The tag division, the belts do change hands a lot, so they could get out pretty quickly. But if they do that, then why have them do it here? So I mean, again, I thought it was a cool thing to have Evil and Sonata team up, but I don't know. It was still weird having them win the tag tournament and then now they win here. Where I kind of feel like Killer Elite Squad should have been, they should have been cemented as the guys.
Yeah.
Because they feel like a legit monster tag team. They're bigger than everybody else in Japan, man. They're huge. So it's, physically. So yeah, I thought they should have been cemented. But hey, I like Evil and Sonata too. So we'll see what they do with it. Yeah.
Well, moving on, we have to talk about the Never Openweight Championship hair versus hair match, also known as the Somebody Might Die match.
Seriously.
Featuring Minoru Suzuki and Hiroki Goto.
Yeah, no, and this is the thing, is usually when you hear hair versus hair match, you kind of roll your eyes and go, oh, God. And honestly, because they had a couple of stinker matches earlier this year, when you hear Hiroki Goto and Minoru Suzuki, you kind of go, oh, God. This was the surprise of the night, and this was also one of my highlights of the night. I freaking loved this match because they made it clear what the stakes were, where Goto really had nothing else to offer Suzuki so that Suzuki would give him a shot at the title, and he wanted that title back. He's had a long string of kind of not being able to pull it out in the big one. And this was like his last chance at redemption. And Goto's always kind of been like that honorable samurai character. He's a little dull, but he's like kind of he's a baby face. He's a purebred baby face. And then Suzuki, of course, is the utter psychopath. One of my favorite heels in wrestling.
He's Satan. He's the devil.
He's Yakuza Satan.
Yes.
And so Goto said, like, the only thing he has left is his honor, is his dignity. So he says, you know what? If you beat me in this match, take my hair. And that got Suzuki's attention. He's like, ooh, I get to humiliate you now too? Like the Skeletor thing. I can humiliate you too, He-Man. It was one of those great builds where Suzuki just kept being like, cool, I'm going to shave the shit out of you, boy. And the match started, and right off the bat, Suzuki gets Goto in a hangman sleeper hold on the top of the turnbuckle and puts that boy to sleep. And Goto sells it like death, eyes rolled back in his head, drool coming out of his mouth on the mat. Wow. And then it somehow escalated back into just Slobber Knocker doesn't do it justice.
Right. It was brutal.
These guys beat the crap out of each other. This is
the pure definition of a stiff match.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I mean, between the 50-hit combo that Suzuki puts on Goto, the one he just hits him so many times. The headbutts.
Yeah.
The headbutts. I mean, so Goto and Shibata are buds, either in storyline or in real life or both. I'm shocked. Like, here's another one. This is not WWE. If someone had gone out like Shibata did, where he gave himself a hematoma or whatever it was from
caved his skull in.
He caved his own he didn't cave his own skull in. He made his brain almost blow up out of his skull from headbutting Okada too stiff. And here's Goto basically calling back to Suzuki gives him a headbutt, and then Goto comes at the end of the match and headbutts the shit out of Suzuki. And then gives him, what is it, the top rope GTR or Ushigoroshi off the top turnbuckle?
It was like an avalanche Yoshigoroshi.
Oh, my God. So this
I
match
remember
was
texting you when I was watching that. I was like, what?
Really exciting match, really hard hitting, like the kind of good, just stiff shit that if you looked at New Japan for some stiff matches, this is like one of the ones I would show people. Like, you want to see stiff stuff? Boom, here you go. But it's also cool because the story was so rewarding for me in this match. Because at the end, Goto has this great comeback, beats Suzuki, and Suzuki, again, he did the typical evil shit. Like, you're not supposed to have any backup, and all his backup came running out, and all of Goto's backup came running out, so they kept it one-on-one. In the end, Goto finally beats him, and Suzuki's backup tries to take him out of the ring, up the ramp, and Goto's just standing in the ring with the razor going, "Where are you going, dude?"
And a chair. He gets the chair and the clippers.
Yep. Well, the young lions bring in like the sheet to put down in the ring, and they put the chair in the middle of the ring because it's time to shave someone's head. and Suzuki Gun is trying to take Minoru out of the place.
Yeah.
And Minoru, who's just he's still selling like he's woozy. You see him come to, and he kind of like realizes what's going on. He shoves all of his boys off of him, walks back over to the ring, grabs a chair. And you think he's getting in the ring possibly to hit Goto with the chair, like he's just so pissed that he lost. But instead, he smacks the other chair out of the way, puts his own chair down, grabs the clippers from Goto, and just, without an expression on his face, just shaves his own head. And then just grabs the hair, drops it on the seat, eyeballs Goto, and walks away. It was such just a badass moment from this evil, sick son of a bitch. But it was such a great, like, just, I don't even know how to put it. Like, it made me feel like I was watching a Kurosawa movie, or like it was just a great moment.
Well, you told me it was like in Japanese lore of old school Japanese lore, it's like committing self-seppuku.
It's not that extreme, but it's, the idea of having your head shaved is
the honor of it.
In any culture, that's going to be demeaning.
Yeah.
But it's particularly like humiliating, and demeaning for them. So the idea that he's like, I'm not letting anyone else shave my head. I'll do it my damn self.
Yeah.
That just builds Suzuki's character so much more as being this guy who's completely insane, sick, sadistic, all the rest, but he has a sense of honor, and he is a badass motherfucker.
Yep.
Period. And I loved it. This is what I'd been wanting from them all year, and they freaking delivered. I loved this match.
I personally loved the ending more than I actually enjoyed the match, but I appreciate.
Yeah, you're telling me the match scared you a little bit.
All right. I want to say this as a little bit of a tease to what we're going to talk about later. There's certain things that happen in New Japan that make me uncomfortable, and I mean that genuinely. The headbutting, what just happened to Shibata, stuff like that. The crossroads off the ring apron that we talked about earlier, that makes me uncomfortable, literally. I get a little bit squeamish at some of the stuff that goes on. Even though I've watched WWE for 30 years with blading and John Cena completely covered in blood and
Eddie Guerrero hitting an artery in his forehead.
Right. So I want to put that out there that there were some moments in that match that was so stiff. And especially when they got into the trading headbutts and stuff, that's where I started to go, oh, God, okay.
Somebody might die
here. But more on that later. We'll discuss more of that stuff and reasons around New Japan, right? But first we have to talk about what I'm going to consider might already, in the first 2 weeks of January, we might already have a match of the year contender on our hands.
Oh, so this was your match of the night right here.
This was I don't want to call it a fatal four-way. Do they call it a fatal four? It's a four-way match for the Junior Heavyweight Championship between Will Ospreay, current champion Marty Scurll, Kushida, and Hiromu Takahashi.
Our boy Marty Scurll, who had maybe the entrance of the show.
Oh.
He came up out of the stage, and then these huge black wings extended out behind him, and he had the crazy, like the old the doctor's beak mask, like the Black Plague mask, and the hat, and his usual getup.
Steampunk kind of stuff. I don't know what that is, right?
Like the steampunk Black Plague doctor looking thing, but with the big wings. I mean, Cody after the show tweeted out a picture that he took of Marty in the back hallway of the Tokyo Dome, like near a stairwell, and he had a green tarp on the ground. He's just sitting there with these wings on his lap, like putting the feathers together and making sure it works. You know what I mean? Like, but Cody's like, yeah, he worked on that all day for you guys.
Wow.
I mean, that if Marty wasn't over enough with me as it was, he just got more over because he worked that hard, had that thing built and shipped to Japan so he could have this amazing entrance at Wrestle Kingdom coming up out of the stage and having these wings extend and walk down the entire ramp with these crazy, huge, awesome black wings.
All that work for what? For 2 minutes, basically, of walking down the ramp.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But also, that's history. Like,
Yeah.
when people do clips of Marty Scurll, that's going to be one of the clips they show. And, you know, we knew before going into this match, these four guys were going to put on a barn burner.
Absolutely.
And they did. But before we get into this match, Nick,
Yep.
I have to take a moment.
Okay.
So we have a special guest on the show this week. I'm actually going to bring him out now. Excuse me.
Oh, what? I don't understand what's happening here.
I'd like to introduce you to...
Oh, it's Gerald!
yes, Gerald Katahashi is here. No relation to Daryl Takahashi. This is a completely different animal.
Right.
Just looks very similar. I'm going to put him right over here. And Gerald can now be part of the show as well.
Well, it's interesting you brought Gerald with you today. It's nice to meet you, Gerald. Thank you for joining us here on the podcast. But also...
He'd answer, but he's too tranquilo right now.
Also in attendance for this match, joining Hiromu Takahashi was... It looked like Daryl, but it was wearing a mask, so we're not really sure who it was.
Yes. Very similar looking cat, but it did have on a lucha mask.
I'm not sure if it was a superstar from Lucha Underground. It's very hard to tell.
I mean, he looks
who
soft
that
and
was.
squishy in the same way that Daryl does. But,
Yeah.
But definitely it looked like he was more of Latin descent.
Yes.
Maybe he came back from excursion. I don't know.
Look, all the hype around the Omega and Jericho stuff and Okada and Naito finally getting their hands on each other again, this match stole the show for me. Hands down. Even what we haven't even talked about yet, this was my favorite part of this whole thing. And I don't know if it's the format of the four guys or if it's the people that were in it or the spots that happened.
The fact that it was nonstop action. These four guys killed themselves for 20 minutes.
They spent more time out of the ring than they did in the ring.
I don't know. They spent a lot of time in the ring too, just flying around. They just, weren't on the ground. It was crazy. And I love the fact that there's been sort of a crossover feud between all of these guys for months now. You've got Hiromu Takahashi and Kushida they've had a feud going on all year. Ospreay and Marty have had years worth of feud that Ospreay just can't beat Marty Scurll. That was built up for this match where, Death Taxes and Marty Scurll beats Will Ospreay. And then recently you've had a little bit of crossover between those two feuds with all the four of them. They've all held the belt this year. So this was They've all held the belt.
That's an interesting statistic.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. No, they've all held the belt. So this was why this was kind of the summation of the whole year, really, was all these guys have held the belt. And they had a bunch of great callbacks to their whole feud right off the bat. Will Ospreay KOs Hiromu like he did a while back where he was trying to challenge Marty Scurll. So this was a whole bunch of great callbacks and a bunch of just monster moves. Of course, Will Ospreay climbs something and jumps off of it. You had a whole bunch of
moonsaulted off of the truss.
Yeah.
Right next to the ring.
Good God, you had
Crazy.
chicken wings everywhere. he caught. What was it? I'm trying to remember the move. Marty caught someone. I think he caught Will Ospreay was trying to do an Oz cutter. He caught him in a chicken wing coming off of that.
Yes.
There was just sunset power bombs to the outside all over the place. I mean, if we were to run down every crazy spot in this match, we'd be here for longer than the match ran. It was just amazing. There were tons of action.
Yeah, if you watch nothing else, guys, even if you have to go watch it somewhere, like YouTube or something, or highlights of it, whatnot, go watch the match or the whole show if you can. But just you have to check out some of the spots that were in this match.
Fingers were broken all over the place.
Yep, it was just there was one.
Hiromu got tied to the railing.
That's where I was going next. So Marty Scurll literally took like athletic tape and lashed Hiromu Takahashi to the barricades to the outside, and then went and
broke his.
it was so good. You
broke
could hear
his fingers on his free hand, so he couldn't undo the tape.
Oh,
and then later on, he got his fingers broken. Went underneath the ring and taped his fingers up. Marty did, and then he grabbed some powder from the case, from the first aid case, hucked it in Kushida's face. And then, it was
so much that went on in this match.
Just
it is
great.
absolutely my match of the night, and it's arguably, by the time we get to into 2018, it's probably going to be still one of my contenders for the match of the year.
And it was also great because as I said, they had been building the storylines that were coming into this match. We knew there was history between all of these guys, but especially between Hiromu and Kushida, and especially between Ospreay and Scurll. And of course, the finish came down to Skrull coming in with his umbrella and hitting the shit out of everyone in the ring. And I thought the fix was in when he got that umbrella. But Ospreay dodged it, hits the Os Cutter, and finally gets the monkey off of his back and beats Marty Skrull. Will Ospreay, your new
pins him clean.
Yep.
In the middle of the ring.
Will Ospreay is now the second time the last couple months he's the champ, but he beat Marty to do it. Big Wrestle Kingdom moment for him. What's interesting is I've heard tell that Ospreay wants to move into the heavyweight division. And
I don't know if that's a good move for him.
I don't either. That was one thing that coming out of this and hearing that, I'm like, man, but I mean, because his thing is, there's really nowhere else for him to go in the junior heavyweight division. He's on the top. He's won the championship a couple times. It was him and Kushida in the finals of the Best of Super Juniors earlier this year.
Right.
So he feels like he's done everything he can do in the junior heavyweight, and he wants to move up. But he's going to have to put on some weight because the dude is, he's a little bit bigger than Zack Sabre Jr., but not by much.
No, maybe 20 pounds heavier, but it's still got that little lanky, athletic kind of body. But, I mean, the other thing is that heavyweight division is pretty crowded right now as well. There's a lot of stuff happening. There's a lot of storyline already in motion that's probably not going anywhere anytime soon. So how do you insert
and you have other guys
an Ospreay into there?
Yeah, and you have other guys that are ahead of him, like in terms of getting into the heavyweight division. Beretta is getting into it.
Sure.
Juice Robinson is looking like he's going to have a good run. So, yeah, I mean, Will Ospreay has to be looking at least 5 years down the road in terms of that. He's got to get more physically looking like Ricochet, I would say, who he's had some of all-time classic matches against.
Right.
But Ricochet definitely looks more like a heavyweight, at least in New Japan. We'll see, because he's now going to WWE. We'll see if he debuts at the Royal Rumble or what happens there. But he's not as big as a lot of the guys in WWE. He's bigger than Neville, but not by much. So we'll see what they do with him there.
Well, let's move over and talk about the Intercontinental Championship featuring Hiroshi Tanahashi and Switchblade or Jay White. I don't know which to call him anymore.
I just call him Switchblade Jay White.
Switchblade Jay White.
Yeah.
All right. This was another one that kind of just went... At this point, coming off the back of that four-way match and knowing that Jericho and Omega and Okada and Naito are next, I really I honestly fast-forwarded through this one. I just couldn't care
And you
less.
know what? You weren't wrong to. There was a lot that I think went sideways about this match. For one thing, I don't think Jay White was built enough to be on the level of Tanahashi. He wasn't built up enough for this. We didn't have a long enough build for this to really matter. And it was one of those things where unless Jay White were to beat Tanahashi and they were going to, and basically New Japan saying, we believe in this kid being a big deal, then it was just kind of a nothing match. Especially given the fact that Tanahashi's injured to hell legit right now. So, and it was kind of a nothing match. Jay White didn't feel like a big deal. And it was, I personally think it was just his presentation as well as anything else. Like he just didn't have that big feel to him. Tanahashi tried his best. I can't really put it at Tanahashi's feet, even though he was working pretty hurt. This didn't feel like a big deal, this match.
So no title change. Tanahashi walks away with it.
Tanahashi walked away. I've described Tanahashi as kind of like the John Cena of New Japan. I mean, he's the ace. He's the guy who brought them out of their dark ages. He was the big money seller. He's still a huge deal over there. He's meat and potatoes. And so you put your guys against him to see if they can get on the big stage and look as much of a big deal as he is. And I hate to say it, Jay White is a great wrestler. He's got a great look. He's got a great character. He's not on Tanahashi's level yet. And this match just unfortunately proved that. He had a chance and it didn't feel like a big deal. And Tanahashi even went on record. People were asking before, it's like, what are you going to do with all these other huge matches around you? You're basically the piss break match.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'm going to make them piss their pants because they can't leave during my match.
Wow.
And unfortunately, he was a piss break match.
Unfortunate, to say the least.
Yeah.
All right. It's time. Co-main event time. Which one do you want to do first?
I don't know. Let me ask. Gerald, what do you want to do first? Gerald says, let's go in order and do Jericho Omega.
Okay. Alpha versus Omega. Again, entrances. Funny enough, it wasn't Jericho's, and I'm sure it's WWE copyright, whatever. Jericho came out to his hit song from Fozzy.
That makes sense.
Judas.
Yeah.
So, and it sounded great in the Tokyo Dome. It's fine.
He'll take those rights, the licensing fees for that.
Sure, absolutely. That's a good point.
Come on. But he did have his old WWE jacket on, the light up jacket.
Yes.
Brought back the light up jacket.
And it looked different and more lit up, and it looked better than
it's
previous ones.
It's obviously not the one that Dean Ambrose broke, the $15,000 one, because Dean still owes him $15,000, as we all know. But but then Kenny Omega comes out, I think is where you're going with this.
Yes.
He came out looking like a character from Destiny.
From Destiny. It was Osiris is the name of the character, which is the new expansion that they just launched for Destiny. I know that stuff because I play the game. And the gun he was carrying is called the Vigilance Wing. Whatever.
Oh my God.
Right. So, gamer nerd right here. Anyway, I noticed that in the notes here, you put the first bullet was, did this live up to the hype?
That's the first question.
And I'm going to come out with an emphatic, absolutely, it did.
I would have to agree.
Right, and let me be clear, right out of the gate, they wasted no time. And you had Red Shoes as a ref, which made this twice as more fun than it had any right to be. But immediately, Jericho comes over very heelishly, starts beating up Omega, somehow ends up over in the commentator's booth, and before you can blink, Kenny Omega is flying over the top ropes, over the barricades, and crashing through the commentary table.
Yeah.
With the commentators swearing, which I've never heard any more swearing on a wrestling promotion.
Yeah. No,
wow.
That's what you get in New Japan. It's not for kids over there.
And then they spent the next, felt like 20 minutes outside the rope, Jericho beating up the Young Lions and everybody, did table spots, commentators going off the air completely because they trashed their whole area.
They trashed the whole area. Kenny taking a monitor to the crotch. I mean, it was a brawl. And this is the thing. This is the kind of match it needed to be. Jericho's 47. Yep. He's not going to be able to work the kind of match that Kenny Omega has been working with people like Okada or Ishii or anything like that. People who have really only watched some of Kenny's matches were saying this was not a good Kenny Omega match, to which I say this was Kenny Omega playing to Jericho's strengths.
This was not a Kenny Omega match.
This was about Jericho more than it was about Kenny Omega. This was Kenny Omega had a great match, and Jericho had a great match. But this is not one I would show people to introduce them to Kenny Omega. This is one that I would say would be a good one to introduce people to New Japan as a whole.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This was Jericho basically saying, look, here's me as the most heelish I could possibly be. And Jericho has actually become somewhat of a legend for always just reinventing himself. And here he's reinventing himself again as being scary heel Jericho over in New Japan. And that lends itself to this more brawling, spread outside the ring kind of style, hard hitting. He brought back the Lion Tamer a couple times, which only certain people can take because it'll hurt you. This was a great match. It was long. It was about 37 minutes long. So it was a long match. I thought it might have gone about 5 minutes too long, but there was a lot of just cool little moments, cool spots in it. I definitely think that if this was your first introduction to New Japan and you're just watching Jericho to watch Jericho, you probably were shocked at how crazy Jericho got in this match.
Yep. Beating up Red Shoes, beating up his son.
Beating up Red Shoes' son.
He beat up his kid.
Right in front of him.
Oh.
What a heel.
Look, this was pure entertainment. This was pure sports entertainment. There weren't really any stakes. I have some theories that we'll talk about over on the WWE side of the world, maybe later on here if we've got time, but I think there could be some surprises coming up very soon, but there's a lot of people that would go, there's no way in hell that's happening. And,
I might be one of them.
Yeah, you might be one of them. So this was fun. This was absolutely fun. It was 30 minutes of just two dudes beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah, but there was also some cool wrestling moves as well. Jericho can still do a freaking lion salt. And honestly, like, props to Jericho for still having the stamina to do 37 minutes. You know, like he wasn't doing the junior heavyweight style or anything, but it was still like that's not easy to frickin' do.
Yeah.
And they were very creative. They found a bunch of great things to do. I thought the build for this was fantastic. They built a lot in not a lot of time. They kind of started sowing the seeds back, early summer, late spring last year with a little Twitter war between them. They were sowing the seeds a long, long time ago for this. But they really, I mean, they were in first gear up until like less than a month ago, and then they kicked it in. Boom, Jericho shows up in New Japan, beats up Kenny Omega, and then it was on.
Yeah.
But it built so quickly, and it became such a big deal so fast. Yeah, and it paid off beautifully. I thought this was a great way to give Jericho another big match, going to give a new look to him, bring more people to New Japan who might not otherwise have watched New Japan. It was good for Kenny Omega because he got to go over Jericho. Obviously, he won at the end with. I loved how they teased the One Wing Angel. It's his move that no one's ever kicked out of.
Yep.
He hits it on Jericho, and Jericho does the Okada where he grabs the rope at the last second, so he doesn't kick out of it, but he doesn't lose.
Right.
But then also Jericho is now the first guy to ever take a one-winged angel on chairs. So, which obviously easy 1, 2, 3 right there.
The amount of trust that move onto a chair must take.
Jesus.
I want to call some special props to that.
Well, that's we were saying like there's
Kenny,
some of those.
I'm 50 years old. Go ahead and drop me on my head onto a chair.
I mean, it is a movie. It is a move where Kenny has to protect you coming down. Like he's got you by the back of the neck. He's cradling you. He's pulling you in so you hit on your shoulders. But it's still you have to do it so perfectly.
Right.
Same with Beretta's Dude Buster, where it's just like it can go so like we said, that crossroads on the outside. You do just a little bit wrong, someone's going to get paralyzed. And so and you do it to a 47-year-old. Man, a 47-year-old in as amazing shape as Jericho is.
Yes.
That being said,
yeah.
But yeah, no, this match absolutely lived up to the hype. Definitely worth a watch. I mean, just for the entertainment factor. Like there's some matches you watch in New Japan for the wrestling, for the madness. This was for all of the above. This had a little bit of everything for everybody.
All right. This is the one we've been waiting for.
Yeah,
since the G1 wrapped in August. Middle of August. It was 4 months now. We've been almost 5 months now. We've been building to Okada versus Naito.
We've known this was going to be the match. There's been a couple of bumps along the way with both of them having to defend. Naito having to defend his briefcase, Okada having to defend his title, but we were pretty sure this was where we're going to end up at.
Actually, let me do something. And for those of you that watch this, you'll appreciate this. I'm going to let you talk about the match, and I'm just going to sit over here and scream, Naito!
Oh, please, God, don't.
For the next 20 minutes.
We had enough of that in the damn match. Yeah, there's the Naito chick in the audience who just wouldn't.
Where was Minoru Suzuki when you needed him?
Oh, can you imagine him taking a chair out in the audience?
And we even watched the Ibushi match earlier, and it was Ibushi!
Yeah, right?
Oh, God. Make it stop. Anyway, little aside there. Okay. For the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, Tetsuya Naito versus
Kazuchika Okada.
Yeah,
and this
is
the third.
I think it's the third.
Yeah, I got to go back and I got to check my notes real quick. I think it's 3 or 4. But it's so. Here's the thing. It's not even. I mean, obviously, we've known this is going to be the match since the G1, pretty much.
Right.
But this is something that's 4 years in the making. This is a 4-year-old storyline, more or less.
Tell us why.
Between Tetsuya Naito, the first time that he fought Okada, and the fans voted them out of the main event. And at the time, Naito was doing this whole Stardust Genius angle, like that's what he was kind of a crowd pleasing, like face kind of guy. So after that, legitimately was hurt by the fans' reaction to him. The fact that they just didn't get him. Right? He goes on excursion, goes to Mexico, and comes back with this. Joins Los Ingobernables and brings the LIJ back to Japan. And he has this whole new attitude where he doesn't give 2 shits about the fans. He doesn't give 2 shits about anything. He's tranquilo, right? Nothing matters anymore.
Yep.
Nothing matters. I don't care. And so this has been this long redemption story of him going through being a heel, and a pretty serious heel too, all the way back to fan acceptance, and now coming into this match, fans genuinely being excited for him to have his match against Okada and possibly finally take this title and have it mean something. And it's been a long stretch where Naito didn't care about anything else but this. I think we mentioned this on the preview show. He had the Intercontinental Championship earlier this year,
right?
And he shit all over it. He literally destroyed it. He was trying to pay for food with it because he didn't care about it. He was throwing it downstairs. Right when he got it, he just tossed it over his shoulder like Luke in the new Star Wars movie.
Right.
Like it was, he didn't care. And finally, Tanahashi took it off of him and is trying to restore it to glory, which is a great other storyline as well. But
and even when he won the G1, as soon as he got his hands on the trophy, he pretended like he was going to throw it into the audience.
The
right?
whole crowd gasped. They're like, "No, don't do it!" He's like, "I'm just kidding. This is kind of cool." But yeah, so there's a long build for this, and I'm grossly simplifying it, but that's basically the idea. Coming into this match, the redemption story of Tetsuya Naito finally coming to a climax. He finally comes back and does get the main event against Okada, and he can come in and finally be the man, be the dude. And at this point coming into this, Okada he's got all the damn records. He has the longest combined reigns of any IWGP Heavyweight Championship in New Japan, and this current reign is the longest reign in history of any champion, any heavyweight champion in New Japan. So he's got all of the records coming into this. And this was, I thought, so now this is the thing. We were spoiled for good matches in New Japan this year.
Yes, we were.
Spoiled. There was, whether you look at Meltzer, whether you look at anybody who watches wrestling on a consistent basis and reviews it and rates it, everyone will tell you that this year, New Japan had more good matches than any other promotion. And not only that, the good matches that they had were some of the best matches, arguably, of all time. Like, some of the matches this year were just insane.
Yeah.
So this match had a lot to live up to. And unfortunately, I don't think it quite got to the level of some of those matches from earlier in this year, Okada Shibata or Naito Omega, or even of course, the Omega Okadas, all three of those. Or even, I would say, this was more on the level of, I would say, like a Omega Ishii from the Long Beach show, which I thought was a great entertaining match, but wasn't like burn down the world kind of. This match between Okada and Naito was very good, and it told a very cool story. And before I get to the finish and what happened there, I do want to say that it was interesting that Naito kept trying to hit his old Stardust genius moves. Like, there was still that part of him that kind of cared about the fans. And I thought that was them trying to subtly tell us something, that Naito hasn't fully let go of that yet. And obviously Okada just being Okada and being amazing, and you can't put him down.
Right.
Kind of thing. Trading off both of them kicking out each other's finishers, and then Naito getting greedy, going for two Destinos, having the second one countered, and Okada hitting the second Rainmaker, knocking Naito almost out of his boots. Boom, 1, 2, 3. Naito loses.
I didn't see this coming.
Nobody saw this coming.
I thought this was going to be the time, because he's got the records. Let's move on. The big build for Naito all the way through the year.
Red hot.
Yeah.
Naito's red hot.
Naito!
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm going to do that randomly here and there, just to warn you.
Oh, good.
And you listeners.
Randomly stab myself in the ears. No, this was crazy. This was actually the biggest swerve of the whole show. And this has been dividing people ever since Wrestle Kingdom. When we did our last show, and I said, oh my God, I've got big news, but I can't talk about it. This is the big news. Okada over Naito. This is huge, because this draws so much into question. If this was WWE and Okada had the reign that he had and Naito came along and lost to him, we'd be losing our minds right now. We'd be like, this is bullshit. Okada's had his time. It's Naito's time. They're losing money on this. What are they doing? And the only reason that more people aren't doing that is because they trust the booking of New Japan more, and that Gato knows what he's doing and he's got a plan for this, that there is something else that again, the fact that they were teasing all the Stardust Genius stuff makes me think that they're trying to tell us something else about Naito. Like, he still wasn't ready. There's still something else that he needs to do to be ready for that spot. And that they're going somewhere with Okada. You know what I mean? Like, he's got to have another level to his character before he can be beaten. He's at the point now where he's basically God, and you can't beat this guy right now. He's just too good. The only way Omega beat him back in the G1 was because Okada's neck was all messed up, right?
I remember that.
And Evil was a fluke, right?
Yep.
He came back and he couldn't beat him again for the championship back in October. So at this point, I think they're obviously they're going somewhere with this, but it's not wrong for people to wonder why they didn't put the belt on Naito here, because it definitely seemed like it was his time.
My question, my follow-up to all of that you just said was, do you think that it's still going to be Naito? He just has some more hurdles to cross? Or do you think they're thinking somebody different like an Omega? Or they're going to take the year to build up Trent Beretta You know,
I think Beretta's at this point so far out of the title picture. Like, it's one of those things where people are definitely going, well, how the hell are they going to have Okada get beaten now? You know what I mean? Like, Kenny Omega is pretty much the only person you can look at and say, well, maybe him, or maybe, Naito does it later this year because he's got to work out something else with himself and figure out what his problem was with this match, because it definitely seemed like he wasn't quite psychologically ready for Okada. And this is like the subtle stuff that New Japan does.
Well, it was the whole opening of the match. If you remember, they spent about 5 minutes of Naito just, oh no, I'm not ready, and he would fall back.
That's his tranquilo thing, too,
and I understand. I understand. But to me, I read into that a little bit too, as to in line with what you're saying, where maybe he just wasn't ready yet.
Sure, or maybe he was trying to psych out Okada and it didn't work. You know what I mean? Sure. Whatever it was, like Okada just mentally was more there than Naito was.
Sure.
And the upside of New Japan having its product be more sports-based than entertainment-based is that you can look at these matches and these guys tell their stories with their bodies and with their actions much more than they do in WWE, where it's very telegraphed what the story is. And you can read into the subtleties of these matches what they're trying to portray with these characters more through their subtle physical movements as opposed to big, shouted statements on a microphone. And you saw that with how Okada eventually overcame Tanahashi back in the day, and how they built Okada up from being another, upper mid-carder to being the new ace, the new top guy. And they took them years to get Okada to where he is now. And there was a lot of psychological stuff between how he faced Tanahashi, the moves he decided to use when he decided to use them, having to get beaten by a move and then come back later with a counter for that move.
Right.
And having to figure out, like, basically having no holes in his game. And it seems like what they're telling us here is there's still a hole in Naito's game. He's still holding on to something.
To me, this says more about Okada and their plans for him. Like, they're not going to take that belt off of him anytime soon.
I would imagine not.
They can't. They just spent an entire year plus building up Naito to get to this match, and they didn't take it off.
Right.
They didn't put it on him. Okay, well, it's going to be Okada then for another couple of years, probably.
And I don't know about a couple of years, but I'll tell you what, it certainly makes every championship match he has going forward interesting to watch.
Yeah.
We kind of have an idea of who's going to face next, and I can't say I'm that excited about that one, but they're also not planning that for one of their big shows, so we'll see. But yeah, that's the big news.
Okada over Naito,
yeah,
for the heavyweight championship,
and it was a hell of a match. Like I said, I wouldn't say top 10 of the year, but I mean, considering that in that top 10, you have some of the best matches of all time, like. It's still a damn good match, and it was overall, I don't know what you thought. I thought it was overall a damn solid show.
Fantastic. With some asterisks, which we'll talk about here in a second. Real quick, let's talk about Fallout and New Year's Dash. What else went down on these shows? Yeah,
so a little bit of the stuff that happened afterwards. Obviously, some feuds are going to be ended here. Jay White and Tanahashi no longer feuding. Jay White... So Kenny Omega came out because there was a match. Kota Ibushi and Cody got back into it at the end of the match. Cody trying to beat the crap out of Kota Ibushi. Kenny runs out to stop it. He and Cody get into it, and they get separated. And Kenny says, "Look, Bullet Club, we're falling apart. We gotta bring ourselves back together. I'm gonna bring out a new member that's gonna help us get back to our former glory." And he brings out Jay White, Switchblade Jay White, and gives him a Bullet Club shirt and says, "Here's our new member of Bullet Club." And Jay White puts the shirt on, looks over at Kenny, and gives him a Blade Runner. KOs him in the middle of the ring, takes off the shirt, throws it down, and the next day joins Chaos. So it looks like we're going to have a Jay White and Kenny Omega feud going forward, which I think will be good for Jay White. I think Kenny will get a good match out of him.
Oh, I like that.
And the fact that I think it's very telling that Jay White joined Chaos, which is Kazuchika Okada's faction. It's one of those things where it means the Bullet Club and Chaos could start feuding in general. Kenny would then have a clear line to Okada. Again, speculating, you never know what they're going to do with Gato's booking. It's one of the great things about it, but there definitely could be something there. In other news, Jericho stuck around and attacked Tetsuya Naito. It looks like we're going to have a Naito-Jericho feud, which is also I'm excited for as well. I think that's going to be a great feud.
Wait, he's sticking around? He
Jericho?
didn't just come over for a wham bam, thank you, ma'am, one time thing.
Oh, he said he wasn't. He said I'm only going to have one match with Kenny. Although he said I'm going to beat Kenny and then move on. But anyway, he lost to Kenny, and now he's going after Naito. And Naito's a little down and out, so Jericho's going to go kick him while he's down.
Hey, okay. Is this? I'm more concerned about what this does for Naito, coming off of a championship loss, and now you're going to go.
I think that's good for him.
Do a goofy match with Jericho.
Oh, it's not going to be goofy.
Oh, I understand. There's no stakes.
Well, there wasn't any stakes necessarily. I mean, I guess the U.S. Championship was on the line with Kenny Omega and Jericho, but I think it's one of those things where, depending on how it's going to be more character based, how Jericho and Naito interact. And so far, it has been very character based with Naito just trying his best to ignore Jericho,
Tranquilo.
Being tranquilo and putting the chair down the ring and just turning his back to him. So I'm curious where they go with it. I think it's going to make for some really. It's going to be a good feud. I'll put it that way. I think it's actually whether or not it raised. I don't think Naito's stock could be raised any higher at this point. Unless he'd beaten Okada. So I think it's good for Jericho. I think it establishes him more. It keeps him in the pseudo main event picture.
Yeah.
I think that he's a big enough deal that it makes Naito look good to feud with him and. Go over him if that's what they do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's going to be a really fun one. And also, hey man, I just like seeing Jericho out there having a good time.
Yeah, me too. And beating up young lions and whatever, and Red Shoes and his kid and whatever.
Throwing chairs at people and brawling downstairs and it's fun.
Speaking of the championship outcome, you mentioned something earlier, and I wanted to. Apparently, it's come out that Sonata is now looking to potentially challenge Okada.
He kind of
is this baked in realism?
On New Year Dash, he looks like he's going to be challenging Okada.
Huh?
So
okay.
I don't know if he's officially challenged him yet or not, but it looks like he's going to be the guy who challenges Okada. Which to me, it's a step down for Okada. It's a big step up for Sonata. I personally think that Sonata had kind of a lackluster year. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. But again, like I said, the pool of people who could realistically face Okada right now is somewhat small. This could be a big step up for Sonata, and I think they're going to be testing him to see if he can be in the main event. So, good luck to him.
Well, overall feelings in. Let's kind of close the recap out here. What are your overall thoughts and feelings on Wrestle Kingdom 12? Did it live up to the hype that you expected? Did it deliver everything you wanted it to from, everything we saw through, especially the second half of the year coming off the back of the G1 with everything that was set in motion? Did Wrestle Kingdom put it all out there for you?
Well, here's the thing. I think that given, like I said, I've said a few times before on the show, New Japan had some absolutely outstanding single matches this year.
Right.
I don't know. I'm trying to think back if any other show was as top to bottom solid as this show. There was definitely other shows that had better individual matches. Dominion comes to my mind as having a bunch of fantastic matches.
Okay.
The G1 might have been the best G1 of all time this year. Again, like I could look. Last year's Wrestle Kingdom was monstrously good and might be better than this one. I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch it again or refresh myself on it. But top to bottom, this was a fantastic show. Like I said, no individual match is going to get match of the year honors from me. But that's not taking away from how good top to bottom and how entertaining this show was overall.
I have some different views. And this is one of the things that I wanted to wait and talk to you with you and share this conversation with the listeners, because I think this is an interesting dynamic conversation to have for somebody that, like myself, and full disclosure, I'm potentially going to kill some of my wrestling street cred out there, but I think it's pretty known that I have not been a big avid watcher of New Japan ever. I've known of Kenny Omega. I know of Bullet Club. I know of the lore behind the Balor Club and the good, Gallows and Anderson and all that. I know a lot of that stuff that most pop culture people in the know of wrestling know about that stuff. I know that. But I've never been a watcher of New Japan. And as I've said multiple times in the last few months, Wrestle Kingdom was, especially coming off of how hyped I was watching the G1. Frankly, you kind of elbowed me into watching a lot of that stuff this summer, and I was pleasantly surprised with the outcome of it. So I was really hyped off of that. Wasn't really invested in any of the stories or any of that kind of stuff yet, but I wanted to make Okay, new year, new me, whatever, Wrestle Kingdom, I'm going to get into New Japan. And I got to say, I didn't have a good time. Few reasons why. Like you said, individual matches, certain things, yes. And I think it had to do with the level of investment and my familiarity with them so that I had some kind of emotional investment and appreciation into the enjoyment of what I was being presented. But half of the card that was on here, I don't want to say I couldn't care less, but I wasn't invested in.
Sure.
And it was hard for me. I found myself fast forwarding through stuff that I didn't care about to get to the things that I did care about. And I had to consume the things that I did care about, even those in 2 sittings, because they were just so long that I didn't get to watch Okada and Naito the first time I sat down and watch it because I had already spent 3 hours watching the other 3 or 4 matches that I was. This is what I want to talk about, and it really comes down to how do you get people as fantastic. I fully admit these are fantastic sports entertainers. These superstars are amazing, and I can't get invested yet. I'm trying to. I want to, but I'm not there yet to be able to sit down and watch a 6-hour pay-per-view for a completely different promotion.
Sure, and that's completely fair, especially because New Japan, the style of the promotion is very different from what Western audiences are more used to. WWE tends to work a faster paced style. They work a shorter shorter match style. So a lot of the times you'll get 7 to 10 minute matches, 15-minute matches, whereas New Japan, you're looking for the most part at 17 to 20 and sometimes upwards of 30 to 40 for some of the bigger matches. There's a lot more build in New Japan matches. The first 5 to 10 minutes are a very slow build, and then it goes nuts in the last half. But you have to get through that first part to understand, their story here. And in addition, as far as the characters, they aren't as clearly defined as they are in WWE. You can't see someone come out and immediately go, I know who that person is.
Right.
You kind of can with some people. Like, I'm sorry, Tomohiro Ishii walks out to the ring, you know what you got.
Yeah.
But then there's some guys, a lot of guys just kind of are there, and they don't do the same kind of over the top, kind of trying to lead you in the way that WWE does, where they almost cartoonishly explain the plot to you. It is a little bit more obtuse. It is harder to get into. Completely understand that. It's one of those things where you have to have a certain level of time and investment in order to get more out of it.
And I appreciate that. I want to be clear about that. And it's something I'm going to work through.
Sure. And again, it's one of those things where I completely understand how someone could just sit down totally cold on this promotion and not get into it at all. Be like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking for. I don't know who I'm supposed to be rooting for. What's going on here? A lot of names I can't pronounce.
Right.
And it is a big hill to climb, but I do argue that it is very rewarding. I definitely had a uphill battle at first getting into New Japan because there's so much history. They don't spend a lot of time explaining the history, and a lot of the history is very subtle, and a lot of it crosses over. It's not straightforward. And so it takes a while to get that basis of information in your head, and then use that to move forward. And there's the times where, there are just matches that underperform. They aren't as good. And then you're like, why did I just spend 20 minutes watching that?
Well, what would you say to some... Well, let me put it this way. When we watched 2 or 3 of the matches that I didn't particularly pay attention to and or enjoy today before we started recording, and I did that with you, and you were there in a sort of complimentary commentary way, explaining to me why certain things mattered.
Who's this guy? Why is he carrying a football?
180-degree different experience. So for those of you out there that might have a friend that's into New Japan, I would recommend doing that, because me sitting down with my Diet Coke and my popcorn to sit down and watch the pay-per-view by myself, whenever, that one reaction happens. Sitting down with you and having a sandwich and you explaining things to me in that respect, it just completely different experience.
I mean, and again, I don't want to get too pretentious about this, but I'm going to. There's a couple of metaphors that I could use for the difference between Western wrestling and Japanese wrestling. One of them is that it's kind of like the difference between hamburgers and sushi. WWE is a hamburger, And when hamburgers are good, it's some of the best food you can eat. Man, it's good. A good cheeseburger, good God Almighty.
Yep.
A lot of times it can be fast food though, and New Japan, I would say, and nothing to do with racial. I just love sushi, and I think it makes an apt comparison, metaphor. New Japan is like sushi. It's if you've never had sushi before, it can be a little bit daunting to get into. Some people are going to just immediately glom onto it and get it and be like, "Oh, I love this."
Yeah.
Some people are going to be like, "What is this? Why? What am I supposed to do? Wait, huh?
Chopsticks? What?
Chopsticks? It's raw fish. That's kind of weird."
I'm eating egg babies.
And
what is that?
Well, and if you go into it with, like you said, without someone kind of leading you along,
right?
And you could say the same thing with burgers. Like, someone like we've made a joke about this on the show. Someone comes in out of nowhere, having never watched wrestling, and you show them Woken Matt Hardy. They're going to turn it right off. Be like, what the hell are you doing watching this stuff? I don't get it at all.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with New Japan, but possibly a little bit more so, where if you walk into a sushi restaurant and are just like, I don't know, give me something. And the first thing you get is uni, like sea urchin or fish roe, fish eggs. You're going to be like, screw this, I'm out.
Yep.
But if you have someone who can kind of lead you in and be like, maybe try the tuna first.
A little spicy tuna first.
Yeah, right. Going to lead you in.
Get a California roll.
And you still have to be open for it. Because there's some people who will never like sushi. Right. There are some people who you can just give up on when it comes to sushi. And they can still be wonderful people. They're just never going to like sushi.
Yep.
Right? But you never know until you try. And I have that kind of feeling with everything. Video games. You brought up video games earlier, right? I'm a huge fan of the Dark Souls series. Dark Souls, Bloodborne.
You're a special breed, sir.
I'm a psychopath. Yeah. But there are some people who like...
Sadist is the word I would use, but go for it.
That's a series that, if you just go in, if you just jump in feet first, you're probably going to get your ass kicked. And most people don't like it. In fact, they built the Bloodborne game. The creator built it so that people who came in, if they couldn't beat the first boss... he's like, if you can't beat this boss, you can't play this game.
Right.
Like, learn, this boss is here to teach you. Either you learn by playing this boss or just don't play. Don't play my game. If you can't enjoy this, you can't get through this, then you can't play this game. It's kind of like that, where, there is definitely a wall of comprehension. There's a wall of ability to enjoy New Japan.
I love the sushi analogy because that really the sentiments really line up there. The other thing I wanted to throw out here is keeping it in the sports realm was it's kind of like why Formula One isn't more popular in the States than it is around, I don't know, the rest of the entire freaking world that worships Formula One,
right? Or
racing.
Rugby or soccer, yeah.
Right, exactly. Look at the World Cup and football around the rest of the world versus soccer here in the U.S. We get excited once every 4 years when the World Cup happens.
If we're in the World Cup, which we're not this year.
Exactly. So nobody's going to care.
No one's going to care.
The other thing I'll throw out there is WRC, which is rally racing, world rally racing. In Europe and especially Scandinavia, India, Australia, etc., it's massive, right? There's all kinds, it's off-road courses, racing, high-speed racing. It's huge over there, but has never, ever made it, even as popular as things like NASCAR and things like that are. Motorsport is over here. You'd think something like that. And it's just going to take different people.
Well, it's going to take, here's the thing. You have to work to get into this stuff if you haven't been raised on it. It's going to take a personal effort. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not something that you can just sit down and immediately be like, well, you might be. I mean, you might. There's some people who are going to sit down, who in America would sit down and watch rally racing and be like, oh, this is great. This is awesome. But for the most part, you're going to have someone be like, this is this person. This is this person. This is what you should care about this car. This is why this car is cool. This is why this track is tough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't know a damn thing about rally racing. That's just off the top of my head. That's what I would want if someone was trying to get me into it. Like, why should I care about this? Same theory with freaking anything. And especially with something that is not built for accessibility. WWE is built to be more accessible. They're trying to get as many damn fans as they want. They're not content with just being what they are. They want to be that thing that is growing and getting more international. And New Japan is they're dipping their toe into that to some extent. They are definitely, the Jericho Omega match, they were definitely trying to attract more Western audiences.
Yeah.
But I feel like they are not going to compromise what they essentially fundamentally are in order to capture those international eyeballs. They're going to be like, look, we'll give you some stuff that you might understand or people you might recognize, but we're still going to be what we are.
Yeah. Something stands out for me out of the, again, I'll probably quote this a lot this year, the 30 for 30 Ric Flair documentary that we saw recently. He said that once Vince figured out to hone in on the kids, and that had to be Saturday morning cartoons, superheroes sort of attitude, it was off to the races.
Sure.
And nobody could keep up because once he figured that out, it's been that way ever since, and that's how WWE was born. Kind of the death of kayfabe, I think they call it at that point.
Well, once he started using sports entertainment, right. Yeah, and that's the thing is that they're definitely much more sports entertainment oriented because they're trying to grab as big of a market share as possible and sell toys and action figures and get the kids invested in it because that's a growth market.
Yep.
New Japan, as we've said before, is pretty much not for kids. If you look at the audience of New Japan, if you look out in the massive, by the way, sellout crowd in the Tokyo Dome, yeah, you've got grown men and tons of grown women too. Like I have to look at the actual statistics, but I think that New Japan has at least 50% women in its audience, if not more. It's a huge. I mean, they had one of their announcers was a woman. The Japanese language announcers for the show was female. Which is something you've never seen in WWE is a female announcer,
right?
Except for Lita on the Mae Young, and that was like a big deal, and she wasn't very good. But the point is,
wasn't very good is putting it nicely.
Well, I'm a nice guy. My point is that Japan attracts a very different crowd to its promotion, and that's who they're gunning for in Japan. And so they don't see any reason to change that. They're not going to be gunning for the kids here in the States.
Right.
Now, individual wrestlers might. You've got the Young Bucks selling their shirts at Hot Topic. But New Japan as a promotion, they're not looking at their stuff as being Saturday morning cartoon stuff. So that right there is going to be a big difference between them and WWE. And that's going to be an adjustment that you have to make, that this is not going to be spoon-fed to you the way that WWE is going to just kind of spoon feed their product to you, for better or for worse. Again, hamburgers and sushi.
The more I think about that analogy, the more perfect it really is.
Makes me hungry.
All racial overtones aside, please don't hope that nobody takes it that way.
On.
But imagine for the first time going into a sushi restaurant just by yourself, and they're like, "Yeah, just surprise me," and it's uni and.
You're from South Carolina. I can imagine the first time you went to a sushi restaurant, someone gave you fish roe, and
it was fried catfish. We call it a fish fry. Give me some shrimp scampi and some fried salt and pepper catfish.
That's not sushi, damn it.
That's southern sushi. Anyway, it's only real sushi if we go out and we gig for it, the catfish ourselves out of the mud holes. Anyway, get into a lot of that. Ian, this has been a great show. This has been very educational for me personally. I hope it has for you listeners as well that maybe aren't into New Japan that much, and I love that conversation and those analogies. Off the back of Wrestle Kingdom, and we've got a lot of outcomes from this. What are the big shows that are coming up here? I mean, let's just go through first quarter of 2018. What are we looking at?
Yeah, New Japan has a bit of a different schedule than what you expect from WWE. Their shows aren't like as regular per se, and they don't have Raw and SmackDown every week. They have what they call Road to shows, and they have a bunch of little shows in the middle. Most of the time, they don't really have big matches, or they'll be lower in the card, singles matches. Most of the time, it's tag matches. Most of the time, it's they're on tour showing off their wrestlers.
Yep.
And you get a little bit of build to the bigger matches and some storylines told in the ring in those matches, but they're not as essential. So starting at the end of January, we have New Beginning Sapporo, and then February 10th, we've got the New Beginning Osaka. So that's the next really kind of big ones. After that, it's the New Japan Cup Tournament, March 9th through 21st. And then they're coming to Long Beach. They're going to come out here, and me and Nick are going to try and get tickets to this. Strong Style Evolved, March 25th, down at the Pyramid in Long Beach. Oh, man. Can't wait for that. I am going to guess a Jericho appearance here in the U.S. Really? Yeah, I'm guessing it right now. And then we get some of the big shows. Sakura Genesis, it will be April 1st. Wrestling Dontaku, May 3rd. The Best of the Super Juniors tournament in May, which I can't wait for this year. And then Dominion.
Yes.
June 9th in Osaka-jo Hall.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a long build through spring to get some big ones in late spring. The way they're going right now, they're hitting on all cylinders. If 2017 was any indication, 2018 should be monstrous for New Japan.
Wow. Well, I mean, even just the first half of this year building to the G1 tournament later this year is going to be...
Oh, the G1. I got to catch up on my sleep now. To make it through that one.
Well, there you go, guys. That's our show on Wrestle Kingdom 12. We hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. I learned a lot. Thank you, Ian, for kind of carrying us, shepherding us through the New Japan.
I barely know enough. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, come
so
on,
much
you're
to
selling
know.
yourself short.
No, I'm serious. I get told everything by Gerald over here. Gerald over here is the one who gives me all my information.
Thank you, Gerald. Thank you for guesting on the show today, by the way. And could you let us know if I'm winking at you, your cousin is actually going to show up in the new season of Lucha Underground? Because we'd all really like to know.
Oh, my. Do you have any idea the level of markery that I'll have if Hiromu and Daryl show up in Lucha Underground?
It's not. We don't know that it's Daryl, though, because it's wearing a mask.
Oh, right. Sorry. Darylito.
Yeah, Darylito. Well, hey, later this week, we're going to have our regular show on Thursdays where we recap the happenings over in WWE, including Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and more. We are less than 3 weeks away from the first of the big four of 2018, and that is the Royal Rumble, and there are some epic things getting put together.
The first ever Women's Royal Rumble.
Nothing bigger than that, if I'm being honest.
And the Men's Royal Rumble, I could go either way. What we're guessing is if you win the Royal Rumble this year, you can challenge either for the Universal or the WWE Championship, or it might depend on brand. We still have yet to find out.
I think we're going to have a Universal Championship match and a WWE Championship match with the winner of the Royal Rumble challenging. If it stays the same, AJ Styles for the I think it'll be the WWE Championship.
Yeah, well, we'll see. This
is going to be interesting because I don't think we've had this before.
And you know what? It's such a relief to be this invested in WWE because there's definitely been some dark times where I just could give a crap. And WWE's done a good job of building up. So we will get into that later this week and continue the road to Royal Rumble. I'm so happy we got to talk about Wrestle Kingdom. Finally get some New Japan content out here. Again, if you do not watch New Japan and you made it all the way to this part of the show, thank you very much. We very much appreciate it. Please hit us up on Facebook at the Busted Wide Open discussion group. We talk about all things wrestling there. We share some memes. We have discussions on matches. We throw back to old matches we may have seen before. And we just talk about the news and happenings going on in wrestling right now. It's also a great place to let us know how we're doing on this show. If you think that we're doing a good job as far as explaining things, if you'd like to see us do a bit of a different format, or if you have any comments or criticisms, that's a great place to air it. Yeah. Another place to air it, go over to the iTunes store, the Apple iTunes store, and hit the subscribe button, give us a review, give us some feedback, give us 5 stars, that sort of thing, or the Android, iOS, whatever you have. Just let us know what you think, and we will continue to put out as many of these shows as we can for you.
Yeah, one of my goals for 2018 is to interact more with our listeners. So we want to talk to you guys. And I'm looking at my computer screen, throwing my hands at it because I'm talking to you guys. We really want to hang out with you guys a little bit more. You can send us an email if you want to, bwo@orbitaljigsaw.com, or hit us up on Twitter at BWO Podcast. If you'd like to rock some sweet swag, you can head over to orbitaljigsaw.com/store, buy a t-shirt, hoodie, phone case, coffee mug, whatever you like. But I'm Nick Howell. You can find me over on Twitter at DataCenterDude.
Do they make t-shirts for stuffed cats? Never mind. My name is Sir Ian Dangerous. You can find me on Twitter at Sir Ian Dangerous.
Well, they might make cat lucha masks, but by God!
Would somebody stop the damn match?
This show is part of the Orbital Jigsaw Network. For more episodes, subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher Radio. For details and show notes from each episode, check us out, orbitaljigsaw.com.